Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Chesney. I'm a librarian here at the Westland Public Library, and I want to welcome you to Journaling for Personal Growth and Well-Being with Dede Montgomery. This program is scheduled to last 1 hour and it is being recorded. At this time, participants' mics and videos can be turned on, and you're welcome to enter any questions in the chat box or raise your hand if you want. I wanted to mention a couple of upcoming programs that we have for adults. Throughout the month of November, you can stop by the library and pick up a Spice Club kit, which this month is anise seeds. Cooking enthusiasts and novices alike are welcome to come pick up a Spice Club kit, which is a small sampling of the spice, as well as some recipes to go along with that. Kits will be distributed on a first-come, first-served basis, and they can be found at the information desk. The next Spice Club kit is happening in February with anise stars as a comparison. And then this month we have a take and make craft for adults. It's melt and pour hand soap. These tiny flower shaped hand soaps make great gifts for the holidays. Learn about the basics with this kit, which includes goat milk soap, dried lavender buds, and a flower shaped silicone mold. You will simply need a microwavable dish to pour from. Kits are first come, first serve as well, starting at 10 a.m. on November 8th, and they're as supplies last. Limit 1 kit per person. Okay, and now I would like to launch the next poll, which is actually from Dede Montgomery, who I'm going to turn this over to now. Thank you and welcome, Dede Montgomery.
Thank you, Sarah, and thanks. I know a couple of you. It's great to see your videos. And so before I talk much, I will read the choices. I thought this would be helpful. Number one, the question is, how experienced are you at journaling? And so not at all, irregularly, but I'd like to become more naturally or have it be more of a routine. It works for me, but I'm always looking to learn more. Nobody offered to say very experienced. I could probably help you teach this, but feel free to share your ideas. So thank you for sharing that. That's very helpful to me. And so I'm going to, I'm sorry, I guess I get to share the results if you didn't get to see that. And so we do have a small audience here tonight, and this will be available for recording, but I find this helpful for me as we jump into this. And so I'm going to stop sharing my poll and welcome you. My name's Dede. I want to say right off the top that while I have journaled probably since I was in the 7th grade, probably regularly since about the 9th grade, I don't consider myself an expert. I think we know there's so many different ways to write. And there's so many different views that we bring in, different things we're looking for getting out of. But I would also say, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a mental health specialist or counselor. I do work a lot around well-being right now, and I might share that in a second. But what I do know is how much writing and really journaling has what a big part of my life it has been, and how much it has really assisted me in addressing so many things, and we'll get into those things. And I think the research on this is really telling. And so whereas, I don't like to show a lot of slides, I have maybe 9 or 10 slides, and in there are some really, I think, important key kind of take-home messages that maybe you've never heard before, or maybe you just kind of want a reminder on them. And so as we jump into this, a couple of thoughts about it is, there's not a right way to do this. I'm going to share with you what I know and what I've learned, and maybe in a few cases what's worked for me. But I would really allow you to, if you're looking for kind of how do I do this more regularly, why should I want to do this more regularly, hopefully there'll be some thoughts there. But also, just looking for a couple new ideas. Hopefully you'll get some of those also as we go through. So the chat is open. We have a small group. I would suggest as we go along, if you have questions, put them in the chat. And then at the end, we can also do some speaking if you'd like to share or ask any questions that way. First, you might be wondering about this picture. This is, so I'll tell you about the picture, but first I have to tell you, my go-to really from a well-being standpoint, when I have something I'm pondering, when I have some feelings, it really is to write. It is. It's kind of my number one, and it has been in the last probably 8 or 9 years especially. But I do love the outdoors. I do believe in getting out. And it's very often when I'm out and about, my own brain keeps going on things I might want to write about. So for me, they really come together. But this is the Narrows on the Willamette River. If you're familiar with that area, I like to kayak and get in my boat right near at Willamette Park in Westland and go upriver to the Narrows. And so this is a beautiful summer day in the Narrows. So my name's Dede. I work, I have a day job in safety and health, occupational safety and health. And what I would say about that is in my world of work, which I've been doing for 35 years, we are really bringing in this concept of well-being more and more. We know, and now is the time to talk about it. We know virtually everybody has some challenges at the moment, maybe greater than what some of us have had previously. It might be pandemic related. It might be friendship or loss, grief, not enough time, worries of financial worries, whatever it might be. What we really are understanding in my work world is how much all of these things come together holistically. And that is why, even though I'm doing this on my own time, when I talk about writing, I really think about it also around what I talk about with people at work. And so I am an author. I'm an active blogger. Feel free to go to my website, which I'll share at the end, but you can pretty much find me by searching Dede Montgomery, author or blogger. And that's really not so much what I'm here to talk about, but it has helped me very much get to where I am in understanding writing. I think the last thing before we move on to the next slide really is, I do talk a lot about grief, or I write a lot about grief. And so while I'm not going to get into a lot of specifics here, I know that can be a trigger for all of us right now. So please feel free if you need to, just kind of sit on what I said, take a break, pull away. The recording will be out there. I understand that, and it's not my intention, but this has really taken me to some really deep places in my own writing. And I really am grateful for that. Because as many people say, as we work through grief or process grief, we do start to understand gratitude. It doesn't mean that we don't feel loss and grief continually, but I think it does help us understand those things better. So first of all, what is journaling? And while I said we all might have our different ways of doing this, what we write on, how we do it, what we do know, and this is really why it's so powerful, it's the practice of course, writing down our thoughts and feelings. But we do that for different purposes. We do it as a way to analyze ourselves, whether we know we're doing that or not. It's a way of discovering something about ourselves. And it's certainly a way we can reflect on ourselves. And that really helps give it shows the power. It's not just how we feel today, but we might be coming back to this and processing this. And whether I keep my journals or not, that sense of putting something on paper has really it's kind of like we've let something out of ourselves. And I really love this statement that I have right across the middle of the screen, which is in writing, you experience the opportunity of being able to tell the truth. Now, many of us, we might consider ourselves honest and truthful and all that, but we all go through our lives not always being able to say the truth. Maybe we're protecting other people. Maybe it's not the time or the place. But what I would encourage all of us is using this place as a spot to be able to be truthful. And we'll talk about some measures that might be important with that. But what I also think about is how important privacy is. Because you have to feel that it's a safe space when you do this. And that's even true. Maybe you feel you're not writing so much about your deep thoughts and feelings, and you're maybe writing a list or what you want to do in 5 years or 10 years. But even that, those are private thoughts, and you might not be ready to share them with anyone yet. And so what I had an experience when I was in college when someone got a hold of my diary, and it was really traumatic. It was absolutely traumatic. And I actually stopped writing for a period of time because I just felt so violated. I was processing my thoughts. I wasn't ready to share it. And so I would just encourage you to think about your journal as being for you until you're ready to share it. There's lots of things I've read that's in my journal to other people, but at the time and place that I'm ready to do that. So think about where you put it, just knowing that you have some safety there if you live with other people. So why journal? And before I get to this, well, no, I think I'll save that. So why would we journal? And there's, of course, I could ask you, your reason, why do you do it? Or why do you think you want to do it? Or why are you trying to do it more regularly? And what I would say first off is, I did say there's no rules, right? Now, what I mean by that is, I love the idea of I have this really beautiful journal that I'll give you the background on in a little bit. And I didn't buy it for myself. It's really, it's really nice looking. It says dream on there. I can imagine I'd have this beautiful, really nice writing pen, and I'd sit here and very artistically write a journal. I don't usually write that way. I'll be entirely honest with you. Maybe once in a while I do, but I kind of need to get things out of my brain. I'm a keyboarder, and even when I'm on a walk and I get thoughts, because if I don't do something with those thoughts, they'll keep spinning in my brain on my walk, and maybe I don't want to think about them during my whole walk. I'll get my phone out and I'll dictate the start of it, and later I'll come back to it. And I'm not saying that maybe is the way you do it, but the point is, find what works for you. Is that aesthetic? Is that special journal? Is that special place you write? Is it a special time of day? I also advise being careful about the demands you put on yourself, so that if you're trying to write more regularly, there is something that's true about getting in the practice of it. But if you I did this when I was younger. I got to write today. And I didn't write yesterday. And that starts to then take away a little bit also from maybe what you're trying to do. And so find a process that works for you so that you start to get comfortable. You save that time that maybe works for you, how often works for you, but to relieve a little bit of that pressure on, I gotta do it. Because I believe, at least for me in my writing, that's not when I write my best, or that I get really into the thoughts that I think I most need to share with myself. And so kind of with that in mind, here's, I think I have 5 or 6 things or reasons as to why we might journal. And so clarify some intentions. You have some thoughts, you have some ideas, and you want to, rather than spinning those ideas in your mind, you want to kind of start to get them in paper, right? This is what I hope for. This is what I even want to do next week. This is what I want to do this summer. It can be it can be very tangible. But the idea is to really clarify our intentions. And it helps us understand, what are we prioritizing right now? Or what is coming out of us that we need to prioritize? Certainly witnessing progress and personal growth. And so, it's so interesting to me. I have journals, like I said. I have not gotten rid of my journals. Now, this is another style. Some people do, they burn their work. They recycle their work. They don't want to hold on to them any longer. And even if that's the way you process your journals, the point of because you put it on paper, you still understand, you still know, your mind still knows that you put it out there. And that in itself is super helpful. Additionally, if you do have things to look back on, you didn't write it with that purpose, but as you start to work through maybe a difficult subject or even something you're excited about, when you look back at previous writings, you can really start to see the growth you've made on that. Maybe you're closer to something you're trying to work out. Maybe you've realized it's not such a big deal, right? Maybe you've gotten feedback in the process from somebody else and it's helped you really kind of see a new way of processing that. So this is a big piece. And I would say for me, this has been a very important part of my processing grief, is when I kind of look back at where I was, where I am. I'm still sad, but I've started to kind of see what else has come out of that for me. We can certainly gain self-confidence. We can feel more confident about the way we even can share our thoughts in writing, which can be a big deal for some of us. It also can make me feel confident that I have the courage to put it on the page. And I have, the courage and the kind of ability to articulate, what is it? What is it that I'm processing? What is it that I'm concerned about? What is it that I hope for? What is it? I just want to, this is what I've been doing all summer, and these are the key pieces, and I love that I have a record of it. That too can be really, really important. Certainly we improve our own writing and communication. In a little bit, I'm going to share with you a journal entry that I wrote quite a few years ago, and you'll notice that I don't write in complete sentences. Now, it depends on what I'm writing. And so even in writing and paraphrasing and writing phrases, you still absolutely improve not just your writing, but how you might communicate. How many of us write some things and later we're going to have we're going to share those thoughts with somebody else. But it's so much easier because we've started to put it on paper. Okay, this is my favorite, reduce negative rumination. I definitely have one of those brains that does this cycle thing. So when I have something that I'm trying to work out, it does this and it does this, and maybe I come to solutions, but there's quite a bit of research showing the power of getting it out and putting it on paper. And I'm sure, we've all experienced that. And then that goes with that process, right? Because then tomorrow or next week when I write again, maybe I look back at that entry or maybe I don't, but I'm at a different place. And if I'm writing about the same idea, it's going to look a little different. And I'm processing through that. There has been one warning I've read about journaling, and that would be if you do write the same thing over and over and over and over and over, okay? So you're not allowing yourself to work and process. I think that would be a warning, because that's almost that same kind of rumination that our brains can do. So I think it's more common because we're not writing all in one spell, and when we come back to it, that's the whole beauty of this, is that our brain and our feelings and our emotions are at a slightly different place as I move on. And certainly mindfulness and relieve stress. And so there's a lot of data now showing, and the title of my talk really was, improving well-being by, writing and journaling. And it does relieve stress. It really forces us to be mindful. Think about how many things you do at once during the day, right? And some of us more than others. You're supposed to be listening on a certain meeting, but then, you've got a kid or a family member or a friend over, and we've just got a lot going on. And so what I would encourage you with this writing is to don't do it while you're doing other things. For me, I wouldn't have the TV on, for example, and try to journal. I might listen to music, and we might test that today. And I don't know if I said that, so we're gonna definitely take maybe 5 minutes or so and just do a little writing piece in just a little bit. But whatever it means to be more mindful for you. There was a time in my life I would want to be in a certain space. I want my certain cup of tea, right? This was kind of my indicator to myself that now's time to just be. And just be good being. Be good being, you know what I mean by that? Be okay that you're just being and you're not doing all those other things that you have to do. And that's where I think it's a balance, because this is not about creating one more thing that's on your checkoff list that's going to stress you out, and you've got to fit in. So that's the balance. And I know many of us are faced with so many challenges of time right now. So find what works best for you on that. And it does strengthen memory too. And what I mean by this is certainly writing, when we write something down, we basically are telling our brain, remember that. Yeah, we've all done that. As many of us write lists simply because it tells our brain, reminds us to do that. And so, writing a journal is really similar to that. And it's a great process, even if you don't ever look back on that again. Similarly, the benefit if you keep your journals is that you do get to look back on things. And while I talk about grief and a lot of heavy things, I write happy moments too in my journal. I was looking back, and I do remember this because I wrote it down, when one of my kids, they're both grown now, but one was really little, her dad didn't have his shirt on, and she's rubbing his, notice his chest, and he says, look at daddy's moss, right? Would I remember that if I hadn't written it down? I don't know. So there's joyous experiences and all kinds that we get through strengthening our memory, but also maybe having a record of things if you want that. Yeah. So this is a picture of my journals, some of them. I tend to like, when I look back, I think the 3-ring or the spiral notebooks kind of are my kind of go-to. Maybe it's because they're so easy to carry around. And these are from lots of different times in my life. But when we talk about journaling, and I know I'd love maybe when we're done, if you want to share kind of what your go-to is, what your main format or forum is. Stream of consciousness is really the way I write. I've got something and I write. And it certainly might stay within a topic, but it might jump here and flow to something else. For me, that works really well. It's kind of the way I am as a writer anyway, but it may not work for everybody else. Others really might have very specific things, and writing prompts are good for that too, if you're just getting started. And we'll look at a couple of examples shortly. Dream journals are another kind of journal that some people keep. And so, we know, right? So much happens to us when we're sleeping and dreaming. There's some people that believe everything you do, you've dreamt parts of, prior to that happening. I actually had a dream the other day about my mother telling me something, and my mom, passed in March, but it gave me an idea of something that I thought I would be working on. And so writing, and I did write that down. And so writing your dreams can be really helpful. And I'm going to share a dream in a minute of something I also wrote a number of years ago. But for me, I don't just have a dream journal. I just weave all this stuff together. Similarly with gratitude journal. I will definitely have days where I am grateful for something, and I add that into my own journal. I do know of folks that simply have a gratitude journal. And I think that's wonderful, right? Because it is, as challenging as things may feel, we have those moments where we're just so grateful that the sun is shining, that I had time to go look at the river, that my child had a birthday, that whatever those things are. And I think when we, just like that power of putting, something on paper, it's a reminder to our brain, yes, that is good. I feel good. The final piece here, which I am not an artist in that sense, sketch journals, but I've had a couple of friends who are just phenomenal with sketching their feelings and ideas, or doing a combination of sketch and writing. And so what I would really say with all this is, what feels right to you? Why, what is your best method for communicating that's relaxing to you and that helps you share what it is you're trying to share? So here's some, I have a citation at the bottom from Tara DePra on some writing tips that she gave. But here is what some of the evidence shows about writing. And so, and my guess is this is something that you already know, but I'll be reminding you, which is writing about emotionally charged memories is not just good for our psyche, but it's actually good for our physical health. And there have been studies, I saw one in particular on arthritis symptoms, people who wrote about how they were feeling and what they were doing, specifically noticed their arthritis symptoms were not, they didn't notice their arthritis as much. Okay, that's one example. But we do know how connected we are, between our body and our minds and our in our mental health. So that's really not surprising. This is the piece I really like, and I've thought an awful lot about this recently, is that we know the health benefits of writing are because of cognitive restructuring. And so, we are learning new ways of kind of processing or thinking about our problems or our stress and our anxiety. And so while, that first writing, and this always, no matter how much writing we're doing, we get some benefit from this. And because especially we talked about that initial writing is kind of a cathartic effect, right? I feel better. I got it out. I got it on paper. But some of the evidence shows that the lasting benefit comes from continuing to see that problem in a new light. And so this is especially around things that we're struggling with, problems, concerns. And so the organizing, editing, and restructuring or structuring of a piece of writing takes it further. So I've really noticed this in my blogging, in that I'm reworking it, right? I don't want somebody to see what it looks like when it first comes out to paper. But by taking some time and not just kind of rewriting it, is this really what I meant in that sentence? Is this really what I felt? That is really helping our brain process something. And so even if you're not writing for anybody else's eyes, but you're going back into what you wrote yesterday, and now you're writing, kind of taking that, not necessarily a full rewrite, or pondering and rewriting ideas, that is part of that restructuring of your experience in your brain. And that is really a significant health benefit. Or my mother wrote a very, very, very long memoir. She didn't share it, she just shared it with family. But this took a lot of work. She edited it. And when I look at it now, she wrote it in her late 70s. And when I look at it now, I see how much she processed through, so much she was thinking about her life. And I know it was beneficial to her. So that's kind of what happens for us in that cognitive restructuring. And again, we're talking mostly about adults writing here, or, well, I don't know if we are or not, but we know that children and people of all ages can get this benefit through this type of writing and processing. And then just to add to that, and this is really kind of what I'm saying here, is it's another form of problem solving. And so certainly it adds value to therapy. And there are absolutely mental health counselors and providers who will also, if it's right for you, encourage you to journal or write. And I know when I was seeing a therapist, it was really absolutely, it went hand in hand, or it does go hand in hand. So that's another thing to think about. So I want to show an example of maybe the kind of processing that can happen through journaling. And I'm going to share an experience. I'll share a very personal experience, and I'm comfortable sharing with you. In this beautiful dream journal I mentioned, this journal was given to me by my kids' elementary school principal at Cedar Oak many, many years ago. And we had a very serious car accident, our family had. And so as I was recovering from that accident, I hadn't really been writing. And so I was given this journal, and I want to read to you the first entry, if you'll just bear with me. And so this is 2002, so this is a long time ago. I had the strangest dream last night. Our family was on a train type thing, camping on one of the major Portland bridges. I recall some trauma involved. You're noticing these are not complete, beautiful sentences. Anyway, at the end, I had to collect all of our things and be prepared when the train, or whatever it was, returned to dock. Lots of confusion. Awoke when arrived at the dock. Mom said bridges can be interpreted as meaning by some a transition. So of course, that's an interesting thing for me to see that now. So I see it showing transition from trauma to landing, and even then being some confusion, a very confusing dream at the time. Maybe in time I'll feel like restating all that has happened. Not now. Now I feel glad to simply feel like writing. And perhaps it's fitting that I begin with a new journal. So I share that example because it's just a start, right? It's just saying, okay, I think I'm ready to do this. Not today, but I'm giving myself the permission to come back to this, for me, a very traumatic experience. And important to process as the days went on and the months went on and even the years went on. And so I would just encourage all of us to think about that power we give ourselves when we kind of allow ourselves to even write the scary things and even things we might not quite know where they're going to go. And again, there are many happy things and joyous experiences we also can write about and process in their own way. So it's not just about sadness and grief. But as I think I stated this earlier, this is really one of my really most favorite kind of phrases, which is, as we process grief, we can move from grief to gratitude, and writing does help us do that. And I'm not, and when I say this, I am not saying that we let go of all the grief, that everything's better. It's not what I'm suggesting here. It's really allowing us to process our feelings and acknowledge the losses we feel. And along the way, allowing ourselves to also think about the good things, the gifts, the things that we did get along the way, even if things changed. So there are other ways of writing that I thought I would, I keep having to move your pictures out of the way so I can actually see what I wrote here. Other ideas for writing, because again, it doesn't have to just be your journal to get some of those benefits. And so, you know, letters, right? Letters are very powerful. Not only are they powerful because they give you an opportunity to share some thoughts with other people, but sometimes it also, you're rewriting a little bit. I know when I've written a really important letter to someone, I've edited it somewhat before it goes out. Not always, but that's another thing that some of us might be able to do to, you know, again, get the benefit of that writing and, you know, lasting, right? I don't know if you all have letters from people you've loved, or that, you know, I look back at some letters and they're wonderful, and they do take me back, even though I may not have written those letters. Blogs can have the same kind of effect. If that's something that you're moving on in your writing experience, no matter what you write about. And then memoirs, like I shared the one of my mom that wasn't published, or I would say what really drew me to writing the way I did, although I'd always journaled, was a memoir that I published in 2014. And that was, it wasn't the only thing I wrote about, but I started writing it after my dad died. And so, you know, that type of memoir is really powerful, because if you're really publishing, if you're getting it out for other people's eyes, then you do rework it, right? You recraft it. You do those things that, you know, do help our brain to kind of, you know, cognitively process that and move on. And so for me, blogging has been, I'm just showing you some sad blogs or some more grief-based blogs. It's not the only thing I write about. And so for me, that's been powerful as well. And being very public about it, which not everybody wants to be. But for me, it's been very powerful to do that. Carefully, not sharing other people's stories that don't want to be shared, but sharing my own stories. And so how's everybody doing? Okay? Yeah, I see a couple of faces. So what I thought we could do here is have 5 minutes of writing. I think, I know some of you may write really regularly, and so maybe you have your journal, maybe this is just time for you to jump back into it. Maybe you don't. I'm going to get out of that mode, because what I'm also going to do in a minute is just play just a little bit of music for 5 minutes. Now, music's another thing. Some of us like to write to quiet. Some of us don't. For me, it's entirely based on my mood. So that if this music doesn't do it for you, feel free to turn your volume down for the next 5 minutes. I won't play it super loud. And so there's lots of great prompts out there. And if any of you, want to reach out to me after all of this, certainly I would be happy to share some of the prompt lists I've come upon. Some of us want prompts, some of us don't. Before I start us going here, I would say, there are definitely so many different ways to journal. And I know there's apps. There's apps out there. I have not investigated them myself. I was teaching a class with some educators within Oregon last year, and they're all mostly teachers, classroom teachers, but one of them said that she and her daughter were doing a bullet journal together. So it was made up of bullets and they would take turns. And, that's a really wonderful idea. And so when I talk about privacy and things, obviously there's lots of other writing we can do as shared experiences that are going to have different kinds of benefits and different needs. So kind of keep that in mind. And all I would warn you about with any type of our list journals would be, again, I would encourage us, if we're trying to enhance well-being, it's not to be another list of all the things you're supposed to do tomorrow or next week, right? If it's really, that might, just see how you feel about it. If that pushes your buttons or makes you feel a little stressed, then that's probably not the best kind of writing for you to do at the moment. But some lists, right? Things you're grateful for. That's really powerful. And wouldn't that be interesting to do that? I know people who do that every New Year's, and then they look back at their previous years or at different times in our lives. I know my grateful list now, I just turned 60 last week. It's really different than what my grateful list might have been when I was 40 or 20 or 13. We've talked about letters to yourself. I just have to say the funniest thing. I wrote, I did write a lot when I was a teen, and when I was 15, I wrote a letter to my daughter if I ever had one. And when my kids were 15, I shared it with them. And it's very funny because kids today are way more sophisticated than I was. And they were very good sports. They're like, nice, Mom, thanks. When I thought I had these big things to, share to my daughter someday, right? About all the things I'd understand. But the point is, letters can be great. Letters to yourself, letters to a past self. And then, of course, some of the things that, maybe some of us dream about, share in our journals anyway, dreams and so forth. I thought right now, you write about whatever you'd like, obviously. But if you're stumped and you don't have something to write about, I did put that one text in bold and purple. Have you changed in the past year? I think that's, for some of us, I think that's a powerful thing to write about right now. And it's not just a incidental homework topic. It actually, I think, can give us some real insight into how we are now, and maybe even some signals to how we might be tomorrow. So I am going to stop talking and turn on a little music. And I'm going to check in with you in 5 minutes. I'll give you a warning. I'll give you a warning in 4 minutes, and then we'll stop in 5 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the music. And I know that was fairly short, but I also know some of you have had long days, have maybe meals waiting for you. Um, I'm going to, if it's okay with everybody, I'm going to stop sharing my slides. Let me see. I have one more slide, actually. What do I have here? Isn't that a beautiful picture? I do want to check in with you in just a minute if you want to share anything about your writing, but I thought it would be better for me to be able to just close my slides. And so if anyone certainly wants to reach out to me for any conversation about anything, I love to talk writing with others, so feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to stop my share. And I just first want to say, thank you for being willing to write for a few minutes. I don't know how you felt about music or not. We all have different choices. And so I kind of like something that's somewhat quiet, but it depends on what I'm writing sometimes. I'll tell you, I wrote a lot of my memoir to the music of the Irish tenors, but it couldn't be when it was certain kinds of writing, like certain editing. So I see a question. I'll get to your question in just a second, but before I do, first of all, how did that work for folks? Okay, yeah, thumbs up. Okay, good. These are great questions. Okay, I will look at those questions. Sorry, I got a little off track with one of them. And so I think that, really allowing yourself the time and space to be there, to not put really big demands on yourself, to be okay with whatever happens, to be okay with whatever your writing is. And I'll say I never wrote to that prompt before. I haven't written to that prompt specifically, and I really liked that prompt. I think that's something that I'm going to spend some more time on, because I think there's a lot of pondering I can do on how I've changed in the last year. I'll just share you one of my pieces, which it's okay to be sad. I think that's been a really good lesson for me this last year. So I see a couple comments. It worked well. I'm okay right now. You do know you're being recorded, and I understand if you don't want to be recorded in that way, but it's fine to turn your mic on. I'm going to read a couple of the things in the chat, and then we can go ahead and see if there's other things people want to share, either about your experience in writing or questions or comments. Please share. Like I said, I'm not an expert here. This is just what I've learned in the last whatever years, if I started to take my age subtracted by 6th or 7th grade. Yeah, that's a lot of years. Let's see. I know you mentioned apps, but do you know of online journals? I don't. So if you have anything to share, Lucy, please feel free to share. I'm happy to look into that a little bit. It's kind of interesting, and yeah, let's hold on to that thought. What are the best non-bleeding but permanent pens to use? Will colored ink survive the test of time? That is a really great question. I have written in colored ink, and I would say all of my ink is readable still, going back to 1970s. And so I can only answer that. I do know, yeah, I think that's a really great point about, permanent pens. I don't know the answer. I'm going to have to write a blog about answering these questions and do a little research. Somebody else commented that worked well to write within that 5 minutes. Okay, good. Are there other either questions or comments, or if you know the answers to any of these questions, feel free to jump in. Anybody? I think what I would then, I think we're kind of wrapping up. And so just kind of a couple of, and I might be repeating what I said, but I really feel so strongly about the power of writing, and at different times in our lives. And it's going to look different, right? When I look back at the journals I wrote during my teens, my early teens versus my older teens, wow. It's not that it's embarrassing. It's just kind of like, wow, is that all I thought about? Or, you know, whatever my comments might be, but still I can, if I sit down and read them, I see this processing. I really do. I see this kind of movement in working out things, whatever those things might be. And so I truly believe in this process. And I would then say, I would encourage us not to have it be a have to do. You know, when I was in college, I already kept a journal, and I had a professor in one of my English classes say, you will now write a journal for class, and you will have it, you know, we will check it. I will check it every week or whatever. And she said she wasn't reading it, but she felt like she had to make sure we were doing it. And I started, what do you think I did? I did 2 journals. I did my real journal, and I kind of did my fake journal, because I wrote something, but it wasn't really what I really cared about. And so I think that let's just, you know, be really true to what we know we need to say and do it in a manner that supports that. So I think that's kind of my last real comment or suggestion on that. And I appreciate those of you who have turned your videos on. It's always great to see more faces, and I understand if you don't, because I also understand that. I know it's almost 7 o'clock, and so I don't know if you have anything else to say. Sarah, you're awesome for letting me do this. I would share with you, this isn't my day job, but I have been able to talk about journaling to 3 different age groups. And it's been super fun. So I've talked to 3rd graders because of something that was in my first book. I talked to kids at teens at Sherwood High a couple years ago, which was really awesome. And then I also spoke, as I started to allude to folks attending a conference through OEA Choice last year who were working in education. And it was really, each one of those groups was, you know, not just supportive of the topic, but they all got it. And so I think it's great for all age groups and all people. So thank you for joining me tonight very much.
Yeah, and you say you're not an expert, but it does take somebody to come out and read from their journal to put themselves in a vulnerable position where they can encourage other people to do that. And sometimes I know people get stuck in journaling. Like, where do I even start? And to have somebody come out and go, well, this is where I started, and maybe that will work for you. We can all talk to each other and be like, this is how I got started. And for each person that just might like something in them and be the kind of initiative that they need to get started. So not an expert, but certainly a lot more willing to put themselves out there. And we deeply appreciate that. Like, that's hard. So
thanks, Sarah. And I think it's just a follow-up. I am curious. I mean, I am going to look into a couple of those. I'm curious about the online journals. And I think, and sharing some ideas that I shared here, at least in terms of writing prompts. I will probably write a future blog in the next couple of weeks that's a follow-up to some of that. So for anyone is interested in that, I don't know. And I'll even look up about the pens. Okay, I'll do that.
Well, if you do, get back to me. I have everybody's, email. Great. I'll get it. Also, at the top of the chat window, I've included Dede's website link, so you can have a direct link to that. But you saw her email if you wanted to get in touch with her personally. I want to thank you all for coming out this evening. It's wet, we're Zoom fatigued, and this is a very personal subject that requires a lot of self-reflection, which a lot of time I know we like to ignore. But I'm glad that everybody's taking the opportunity to take care of themselves this season. And that's what I just love to see and be here for you. The recording will be available. It will be sent to you directly, so you don't have to worry about going and finding it. But if you don't hear from me or you don't get the recording link, please feel free to reach out. You can respond directly to the emails I sent you. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a fabulous evening.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, everyone.